All right, well, we are sitting here in the PHLY studios with a little bit of a late scratch of our own because it's very, very topical for the team that we cover. Derek Bonner, joined by Kyle Newbeck on the PHLY Sixers show, presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app and use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary, just like this team and just like this show. So, last game before the All-Star break, I don't know if you've noticed, the last couple of games have not been great. Ever since, Paul George and Joel Embiid came back in the lineup, you had an easy part of the schedule, thought everything would sort of get back on track. Heading into the break, maybe have a little bit of a feel-good moment. I don't know about you. I don't speak for you. I'm not feeling great.
The vibes have, I feel like, how many times have we said the vibes have never been lower? This is rock bottom. This is as bad as it gets.
This is the worst. It's bad. It's that Simpsons meme. This is the worst it can get
so
now.
Far.
Yeah, so far.
And every time that we've had those conversations, I think it was all predicated on the fact that eventually Joel and PG and Tyrese would take the floor together, and there was a built-in assumption. Not only will they look pretty good,
how to play basketball,
they're going to win, right? Like they're going to put a productive and fun to watch team on the floor, a two-way basketball team. When you're seeing defensive improvement from Tyrese Maxey, you get excited about that and say,
Maxey took like this massive leap, and he could be a one option now.
Yeah, and you would say if he defends, and you bring back Joel, and you have Paul. And you have these other guys on the wings who can help. Well, that's the recipe for a really good team on both ends of the floor. And as I feel like we've documented over and over again, they're not good at anything.
Not a thing.
Nothing.
No. They can't rebound. Their defense has been trash. Their offense has been, static and ineffective. They're not good at anything right now.
So I think we probably all expected Joel Embiid was going to miss this game.
Yeah.
I think him not playing a back-to-backs is, while it's not completely set in stone, is as close as it can get without being set in stone. The curveball, I would say the big bad news for the Sixers today was the announcement that Maxey is out, that he's dealing with a right knee contusion, and went back and he wouldn't cop to it last night when we talked to him in the locker room, Derek, but went back and watched the footage of it. Didn't take long. It's the first 30 seconds of the game. He has a swing pass over to Paul George, Scotty Barnes with a hard but kind of unfocused closeout. Like he really just runs into him for no real reason. And they bang knees, and it's what the team is calling a right knee contusion. What the extent of the damage and whether that will impact him following the All-Star break, we are still not exactly clear on that yet. But it's not great, Bob. It's not. Use a line we said many times on this show.
It is. I didn't see it live. Do you see it live?
I didn't even. I mean, I saw him after the play grimace a little bit, but it wasn't one that it was lingering. Like, he's got an injury.
So after the game, the Nick Nurse said, "I don't really want to speculate too much before I talk to him." And then literally the next sentence was, "I have a feeling there's something. I hope not, but I think there might be something physically bothering him." You directly asked Tyrese afterwards, and was like, "Yeah, I'm fine, whatever. It's nothing too big. Like I'll play this game, then we'll have the All-Star break off."
Yep.
And now we got the word about an hour ago that he has that contusion in the knee. I'd love to say it's the right time for, if you're going to have a small bump and bruise right before the All-Star break is sort of the right time. But they do, if they want to catch that 10 seed, they need every win they can get. This is also a big game for people who are on the other side of that debate. But if they are to make the play-in at this stage, they really need this game. So it's not a good game to miss. But you're sitting here now, no Joel Embiid, obviously, no Tyrese Maxey. You've got Paul George and a bunch of role players.
Yeah, and so I think now it's going to depend on, we'll see, maybe he comes back from the All-Star break, and this is just you're not risking it. They're playing it conservative right now and saying this will give him, week and a half to rest, and then he'll come back and he'll be okay. But I think it'll be very telling if they come out of the break and Maxey gets some time off, because then that really sets the stage for, if you're a fan who was done with this season, who has no belief in this idea that they've trotted out. Hey, if we can just make the play-in and the playoffs and get in there, we have the talent, we have this, we have that. Maxey picking up an injury gives you the opening to say this whole thing is being shut down, because I think the easy spin, the easy sell was you could figure out a way to rule out Joel. Paul, quite frankly, you could justify taking him out for a month, 6 weeks, whatever it is, to deal with the pinky, the torn tendon that he's got on his hand, and use that as an excuse to pseudo shut him down, if not shut him down entirely. But we said many times, telling Tyrese Maxey he can't play basketball and that this season's over for him, or making up a phantom injury, well, that's another story. So if this is a real problem moving forward, then that creates the path to say, even if you don't say it publicly, even if you don't admit to it, to just shut this thing down, go into full tank mode. You're playing young guys, you're playing backups, you're playing old guys, young and old, but none of them real impact players, and try to get Cooper Flagg, try to get Dylan Harper, VJ Edgecombe, Ace Bailey, whoever it is, and try to provide, it'll be a poor entertainment product, but try to provide some form of hope for a fan base that right now has none of that. Just absolute zero.
Did you say VJ is now shooting 38% from three? My
Brother,
guy, with that athleticism, if he can get an outside shot, that is a topic for a different podcast.
We are
trending
some real
towards
conversations, baby, about that guy.
Because they are now only a game up on the team they're visiting tonight in the Brooklyn Nets. Game up, I'm saying, from the perspective of trying to make the playoffs. Nets have the sixth worst record. Sixers, the seventh worst. Only a game difference. Even that fifth worst record, that's in play. And that is truly, truly unbelievable to say for a team with the expectations. And quite frankly, even just 2 weeks ago, I was looking at the schedule and being like, all right, they're almost going to walk into that 10 seed with no problem whatsoever. That is not the case right now. And are you at the point where you really deep down think they should shut it down? Because I think there's some consequences that come, mostly in the fact that I think Joel Embiid, I think there's a perception that Joel Embiid, if you shut him down, he will have a better chance of being able to play next year. I'm not sure that's true.
Yeah.
And I think he needs to figure out how to play with this injury, how to manage the injury, what he can do on the basketball court, and what kind of role he's going to play going forward. And all three of them still need to build some kind of chemistry. Now, you expect that Tyrese Maxey and Embiid can get that back up pretty quickly. But if Joel Embiid fundamentally has to change how he plays and the style that he plays, and that's going to take some time. I think losing some reps and losing some eval of what you can expect from him going forward does have some consequence, assuming they're not going to blow it up, which I still think that's my running assumption.
Yeah, Derek, I know you and I have talked to a lot of people about the Joel stuff over the last, 3-4 days after the Lisa Salters bomb drop on national television where the word surgery is used, and then there's pushback on the word surgery and yada, yada, yada. But I think the most important thing you said there, and I want the people who are regulars around here to hear this. I do think that the belief is that if he gets surgery, that is because everything else that they are either actively trying to do or would try to do has not worked, that it's his knee's not adjusting. And what we have heard from the start of the season is that this is an issue that Joel simply has to manage, and that over time, it's a problem that shouldn't be as pronounced as it is, that he shouldn't have the flare-ups as often, that his knee will adjust to the new reality, that this isn't something like, there is no surgery save for maybe that experimental surgery that Lonzo Ball got that, frankly, he hasn't been very good this year. No. And that requires a super long layoff. And there's no real track record of success for it for any type of high-level athlete, guy trying to maintain the level or even close to the level that Joel Embiid has been at in recent years. That the best case scenario is that there is no surgery. His knee begins to acclimate, that it doesn't swell as much. There's not as much regular pain. The only way for that to happen is not time off. It's not him sitting on the couch. It's not him getting a scope. It's Joel being on the floor regularly and being out there. And so I think the tough thing for the Sixers, and this makes it tough on the fans as well, is that they need him to get out on the floor And while recently I think that's probably actually helped their case to tank and whatnot, because he's been fighting his knee and they just have looked clunky with him on the floor. I think over time, between now and the end of the season, ultimately having him available, having all these guys available, will make it harder for them to hold on to better lottery odds. And so you're at this crossroads where you say, on the one hand, getting that premium pick, if you can get one, is probably more valuable than whatever 20-something games of reps are. And so I would be in support of just saying, screw it. But I don't think, if you're looking through it of what's best for Joel, I don't think shutting him down and finding some procedure to do on him is the best path for him, whether that means it's for on the floor or even for if you're someone who wants to trade him. You can't trade him if he never puts together a healthy stretch of basketball.
There's so many people that are like, well, shut him down and trade him in the offseason. Who's going to trade for him when he just played 16 games and had to be shut down?
That's the toughest part about all of this.
Yeah, it is. And it really is, to your point, like if you can guarantee me that pick, then I think you make the decision to shut people down. Like we've gone over before, the lottery odds are not, unless you can get up to that second worst record, which you can't. Just flat out, you can't. Like you are 8 games behind Utah and New Orleans. That you're not covering that up with 20 whatever games left to play. So that's pretty much out of the picture. 5th worst record gives you a 64% chance basically of keeping the pick. It's a good percent chance. You have a pretty good chance of keeping that pick. It's still not a guarantee. Can you imagine if they shut him down, shut Paul George down, shut Tyrese Maxey down? We have to go through this nonsense for another 28 games or whatever. I can't do math off the top of my head. And you don't get, and you send OKC that 7th pick. Oh, fans would lose their mind.
What a gut punch that would be. But so I do think that trying to sell out for the young player, the pick, and all that, and even if it's not a bridge building to a new era, you're at least injecting some. What have we seen recently over the last few games, right? When Quentin Grimes has been on the floor, when Jared Butler has been on the floor, and you compare that to what it looks like when Kyle Lowry or Eric Gordon is on the floor. It hasn't changed the results, but you can at least see like, oh, this is a guy who can help the team. Jared Butler comes in and I think he had like 15 or 16 points last night. We'll get to him in a little bit as far as tonight's game. And then Quentin Grimes, guy who can get shots up quickly, which that's helped with Justin Edwards in his role. We've seen how big of a benefit that is to the team, but can attack a closeout, can be a slash and kick guy. Beat somebody off the dribble last night, dunked on Toronto. So, excuse me, what you see is, if you imagine getting a much higher caliber version of that, right? A 19 to 20-year-old who's a top 5 player in their class, top high school recruit, going to a big-time program.
Maybe plays at Baylor.
Add a guy like that to this mix, and you bring back McCain, and maybe you get better injury luck. Then next year, it's like, okay, yes, you need Joel to be healthy. Yes, you need PG to be better, but you're not so wholly reliant on, well, are these guys going to suit up or not? And is that the only reason to pay attention to the team on top of that?
No, a top 6 pick would be absolutely massive, in part because it gives you some percent chance at Cooper Flagg. I don't know if you've seen
Sixers
Cooper Flagg.
Are making me sick over here.
Cooper Flagg, the last 16 or so games, is averaging 21, 7, and 4 or something like that. He's starting to shoot the 3 ball really well. But I think there's some pretty good depth, and specifically some pretty good depth at positions that you need. Certainly getting that pick would be massive, not only for their future, but massive for my sanity and for the watchability of this team next season. I think that point you just made of not everything is tied to the old guys being available would be absolutely massive for fans who still want to be invested in Sixers basketball. Even if maybe the odds of a championship, you've lost that kind of hope and confidence. Watching Jared McCain, watching Dylan Harper or whoever you end up with would be just an absolute boon that you need. We will see what happens. And certainly tonight's results will be telling and maybe help determine which side of that debate you are on. I do think you are like Joel Embiid. Who knows? Anything could happen. I think Joel Embiid's going to be here next year. I think you need him to have recovered from that, from where he's at and at least get back to where he feels comfortable playing basketball on a regular basis, and you can have a better chance of predicting what he's capable of giving you. I do think the next couple of months will be important to that, just not more important than a top 6 pick.
So this is where we are, where I don't think there's any conclusion other than what's the point of trying to like string it together and say, oh, in 28 games with maybe, and even then you're not getting 28 games of all three of them, right?
Yeah.
Because Joel's not going to play back-to-backs. PG will miss some time at some point for whatever reason, whether it's rest, recovery, another injury popping up, might have a hand, like maybe he gets hit on the hand one night and it just makes it worse. It inflames it, and it's not extending the injury, but it's like, man, I just can't play through this tonight. Maybe you get 20 to 25 games of these guys before the playoffs. Like, if you look at these teams at the top of the East that you would have to play, Cleveland has been a juggernaut for most of the season. Boston has been worse than last year, but their version of worse is still, their worse is much better than the Sixers' best right now.
Every time you say playoffs, I have to resist the Jim Mora urge. I have to resist.
Yeah, you have to make it first, but like even if you do, even if you somehow scrape it together, like look at the Knicks, right? Like Cat goes there, and Cat's having like he's probably going to end up finishing the season top 5 or at worst, I'd say top 7 in MVP
Was
voting.
Was he in your top 5?
In the straw poll?
Yeah.
That might be a topic for later.
Okay.
But so like you're getting at least like top 5 MVP type season from Cat, and you have Brunson and you have Bridges who you added. And like these teams have largely had their guys available. They're going through the ups and downs together. And like, what case can you make to me, to a fan, to just like any analyst or person watching the sport that you're going to slap this together based on what we've seen? I don't see it.
No, any reason to not full-throatedly tank is not, I have confidence in these people to make a playoff run. It's 15 games of them playing together, and Joel Embiid trying to play on a regular basis for really first time all year might help for next year. I do agree, like that top 6 pick is more important. I just can't believe we're here.
It's crazy. Because look, and we said it on the show many, many times, you and I both, all throughout November and before Joel came back and they had that nice run in December, that this team will not tank. They just are not built that. And I still
don't think they will.
Honestly, the mentality is still not there at the highest levels of the organization. Now, maybe now that the Eagles season is over and now that the full focus of the city, at least for right now, I guess spring training is coming up and pitchers and catchers reported. So maybe the Phillies will take a little bit. But now that the pressure will really be on the Sixers, like all these people will go to the parade on Friday and enjoy the Eagles week this week. After that, it's like you cannot hide, right? If you're Josh Harris, if you're Daryl Morey, if you're Nick Nurse, like you're going to hear louder and louder and louder and louder from people. Like this is just unacceptable. You can see it, quite frankly, Derek. You see this yourself in how many people are going to the games. People with their lack of attendance and their lack of wanting to show up. Might have been
40% of the people there last night.
And some of that's the snow and the weather. But we've seen the attendance dwindling. Like the interest in this team is not there. The belief and frankly the affection in this team is simply not there. And so at a certain point, everyone is going to look around the room and say, can we really keep going through this charade? Like, is this really worth it? And is the risk of so there's 2 risks, right? Technically, it's a risk to tank the rest of the season and not get the pick, but I don't really see that as much of a risk because I don't believe in their championship odds, period, right? I don't believe they have championship equity. So the downside of losing the pick is there either way. You might as well at this point try to put yourself in the best possible position to keep that pick and, again, offer some bit of hope for the future.
Yeah, and if you can't beat, I mean, tonight's different because you only have Paul George available, but if you can't beat freaking Brooklyn and Toronto, then I don't want to hear about, oh, we just need to get our guys back. Like they have had their guys for the last couple of days and they have been absolutely smoked. Their defense was a disaster. Offensively, they don't look like there's any kind of connectivity, which I kind of understand a little bit. That's where they haven't played together. I think really you can see it, But the effort just hasn't been there defensively. The want to just hasn't been there. And the connectiveness obviously hasn't been there either. This has been the easiest 4-game stretch that I've seen a team go 0-4 on. And if you lose this one tonight to cap it off, there's no real argument.
Can we, Bree, pull up the starters for tonight's game as we move on to talking about, I guess, So speaking of the young guys, we have Butler and Grimes alongside Oubre, PG, and Yabu. And so here's what I would say on top of what you were saying, Derek. If they don't get 20-plus points out of Paul George tonight, if I don't see a level of aggression that frankly just has not been there, if he puts together one of these fade into the background, blend into the team, I'll get my shots when they come to me approach again, I am going to be apoplectic on our post-game show because I just can't take it anymore. Frankly, you could make a great argument that he shouldn't be out there either tonight. Like if you're just going to shut down Maxey and Embiid for this game, throw him out too. But if he's going to be out there and, good for him playing on the back-to-back and whatnot, you better come out there like you are, as I keep saying, a stakeholder in this team, as if you are part of the core of this team, for better or for worse. And I know most people think it's much more for the worse. He needs to seize control of this game, seize control of this team. I do care about the efficiency. I don't want to say, because if he shoots 10 for 30, I'm not going to be happy. What I don't want to see is Paul just standing in the corner and deferring to other people.
5 for 12 with 4 3-point attempts. And
honestly, double-digit shot attempts has been tough for him at times. I mean, recently it's been like 4 for 8 or 3 for 7 or whatever it might be. That's just not acceptable. And so that's something I'm really keying in on tonight. Like, does Paul George actually want to leave an imprint on this game, make an impact on this team, or is he just happy to say, well, not my fault, hands off the wheel, somebody else figure it out? Because if that's the case, that would show you one of the biggest problems with this team, and that's that a lot of people just seem to be saying, I don't know, somebody else got to figure it out.
Jared Butler, Quentin Grimes, Kelly Oubre Jr., Paul George, and Gershon Yabusele. I'm excited to see what Jared Butler has. He had a real good game the other night. I've liked the way he's able to get to his spots even without great quickness or burst. I like his passing and his vision. He's already one of the better passers on the team, and he was able to get to the cup and get in the paint, and whether that was scoring over much taller people or drive and kick, he looked good the other night. I'm excited. I'm glad they're starting him instead of Doughton, because I'll be honest, I wasn't 100% confident they would go that way. It was clear they should have gone that way, but Nic tends to have a blind spot here or there, especially for people he has coached before and worked with before, and that has been the case with Doughton. So I'm happy they are going that way.
I'm really happy. I'm not happy that anyone is hurt and can't play. I'm happy that we're not going to have to watch 25 to 30 minutes of Kyle Lowry because he's out tonight, because that would have happened. He likely would have gotten the start here. And you would have watched I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Scanners. My head would have exploded like the people in that movie. So I am thankful that I'm going to keep my head on my shoulders for the time being, and that we'll at least see. I mean, look, Quentin Grimes, as far as we can tell, is going to be a guy that's going to be a piece for the future, right? Yep. That he's going to combine with next year. It'll be Maxey and McCain, and maybe Butler as a fourth guard, depending on what happens there. You're going to see what happens, for better or for worse, when he and Butler have I'd say a pretty big hand in how the offense runs, and see how they take advantage of Yabu spacing them out to the 3-point line. And here's the other piece of intrigue. Is it Adem Bona or Andre Drummond? That's a fun subplot.
Both of them have been kind of out of the rotation lately.
Yeah, because Nurse has opted to go Yabu as basically the primary backup and a swing front court piece next to Embiid. But now we get to see, is Nurse willing to play Bona over Drummond for whatever downside there is there in terms of the locker room politics and whatnot. I think Bona, frankly, has earned that spot. We've had a lot of conversations about that recently. But again, always, never underestimate the ability of a coach to play the veteran over the young guy.
Look, if sitting Andre Drummond makes him opt out of the next year of that contract and give you just a little bit of more room under that first apron hard tax, I'm okay with that as a side effect as well. A couple super chats here, and then we'll get to Bet and Bree before we get out of here. Say a Rider, wish the Sixers took a page from the Eagles. If you have good rookies or young guys, play them. If your MVP is always injured towards the playoffs, pivot Embiid will never be healthy. I guess what I would say is I think he's mostly been forced into it, but I think Nic has mostly played the young guys this year. Like he's played the old guys too, but like Jared was getting a good run before he was out. And was his hand forced a little bit? Yes, but I also think Jared was going to be in that rotation regardless. Yeah. And, for how late of a pick Jared was, that's not a sure thing for most playoff or teams that thought they were competing for the playoffs to start the season. So,
and look, Justin, when we watched him in the summer, I wouldn't have played him at all this year. So the fact that he was able to get an opportunity, some of it is down to you're down 6 to 8 guys in the rotation on a given night. But
he was playing Bona ahead of Drummond for those couple of games before Joe came back. So look, I don't think Nick Nurse necessarily loves playing young players. Mm-hmm. I think historically he hasn't played a ton of young players. And I think we can nitpick over some individuals, like maybe Ricky. I think it's not Ricky's youth that is getting him in trouble, but his decision making, which sometimes comes with youth. But I don't think Nic necessarily trusts that. Even so, I think Nic has done an okay job in playing the young players in this specific season. It's not giving him a ton of credit, but it's just the bare minimum.
And that's like about the only credit that I'm really willing to give him at this point of the year.
Bernard McCory. Some of y'all don't really trust Maxey. Watching the video of Barnes crashing into his knee was disturbing. Has mercy on him. He's trying. I don't think we were too hard on Maxey,
I think my take last night was it was a really bad game. And I was honestly, before we got to the point of talking to him and Nurse and the injury stuff came up, I was more just like bewildered by that game. Yeah. Like I couldn't believe that it happened because he had been playing so well. But once I went back and I saw it on the film, honestly, first takeaway was, what is Scotty Barnes doing? He just ran into him. It was a bit of a sloppy closeout that I don't know what happened there. But obviously, first and foremost, speedy recovery to Tyrese, who has dealt with a lot this year and last year, frankly, having to shoulder as big of a load as he has. So hope that it's nothing serious and that he can get back out there ASAP.
All right. I think we got some picks here from Bet and Bree.
Thank you to Bet365 for our pregame
put these together
segment
pretty quickly at the last minute. I'm sure they are wonderful as always.
Of course. Ooh, a plus 160 same game parlay. Bree's got Quentin Grimes for 10 plus, Paul George for 15 plus, Cam Johnson for 3+ threes. I think I like all those.
Yeah, I think those are pretty good. Paul George, I mean, if he doesn't give us 15 plus, we are going to have a heck of a post-game show.
I will flip one of these desks over. Maybe not, because then the microphone's going to fly and my computer will probably break. But metaphorically, I'll flip a desk over. How about that?
No, I think those are pretty good. I'm interested in Quentin. I'm probably more interested in Jared, probably just because we've seen Quentin for a couple more games now. Jared's relatively new, a little more dynamic, not a little more dynamic with the ball. And they have needed a backup point guard for so long that if he can pop a little bit and have a couple good games in a row and maybe relegate some of the older point guards to the bench where they can coach and give advice, that would be fantastic.
For sure. So that was our pregame pick segment brought to you by Bet365. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up. Whatever the moment, never ordinary at Bet365. Hopefully, Bet and Bree has I haven't been tracking her picks the same way that I track Devon's, but you must be 21 plus and physically located in PA. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Let's go.
At least we know Devon's picks won't be wrong today.
That's true. Well, at least we're not aware of his wrong picks. He might have them, but he got a little tied up. So we'll see Devon at some point later, I presume. Miss you, buddy.
We presume. Don't want to make any assumptions, but you should see him on the post-game show. And I think that will probably wrap it up here from Derek and Kyle and, of course, Bree. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will see you after the game.
We all silly like the mayor.